Okay, good evening, everyone. As I am sharing right now is the agenda for the evening, and we'll have one addition at the end, which I'll get to in a minute. We're going to be hearing BZA cases. The first for 3200 13th Street, then 1219 Kenyon Street, 3556 13th Street, 616 Quebec Place, and 428 Manor Place. And then at the end, we will get an update from Commissioner Bass about the issue of the historic district in the Parkview area. He has some new information as well, so we'll hear and discuss that too. I am just looking real fast. I do not yet see that Commissioner Love-Wade has joined us, but are there any objections to the agenda? Okay, I think I'm going to bring up, I'm going to assume that John is John Wang, but we'll find out here just hold on a second. John, are you the John Wang who's associated with our first case tonight? I have muted you, or you'll need to unmute yourself if that is. John?
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi John, we can hear you.
Good evening, good evening.
Are you part of the first case?
Yes.
Okay, very well. And were you planning to share? Well, you know what, I'm going to promote you anyway. Hold on one second. Okay. John, you'll be able to unmute yourself and start your video if you choose. And then I think it's Miss Ferreria. Oh, I see her. There she is. Miss Ferreria, you can, I hope I'm saying your name right. You can unmute yourself as well.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Are you the one who will be presenting the case, or is there someone else that I should involve?
I will be presenting the case. I think my client, John Wang, would just like to introduce himself.
Sure.
And then I'll take it from there.
No problem.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just a small boutique developer in DC. So we do you know, small but a high quality project. That's why I choose Katerina. She's the best you know, architecture I ever met, because every of her project design is really, you know, like put the neighborhood, everything to detailed consideration. We try to minimize the impact and create the most attractive buildings in the area.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
And Ms. Ferreira, you can either share your screen if you have slides there, or I have the plans as well if you need me to do it.
I will share, no problem. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, John, for those nice words. I wasn't expecting that. Well, it's been a pleasure really to work with John on this building, and it is a treasure of a building, despite its condition. And when he first approached me about it, I was immediately interested. The building was built in about 1900, and I'm sure if it were located in a historic district, it would be very hard to do anything to it, you know, because of historic preservation. But regardless of the fact that it's not in a historic district, we're still trying to be sensitive. So I want to start by putting that out there. It's basically a mini mansion of sorts. The building has a little bit of a colorful history. You know, it's gone from, you know, being a little mansion to, I think, a multi-unit building at some point, and then it was the American Newspaper Association headquarters for several years, and it's been vacant for I don't know exactly how long, but probably around 10 years at least. People in the neighborhood might be more familiar with the history. It is at the corner of Kenyon Street Northwest and 13th Street Northwest. And as you can see, it's comprised of a main building and then a side wing and a garage heading north. These are just some more descriptive photos. It is in pretty poor condition, although it's not falling apart, so it can be salvaged, and it is our intent to restore it, the exterior of it as much as possible, and try to rehabilitate it into a slightly larger building. So the application that we're putting before you is for conversion to a 3-unit building. The history of the building is a little bit murky. There is no official CFO stating that it's a commercial building. There also isn't a CFO stating that it's a 5-unit building, even though that's the property description on Property Quest and official records. So we're going to BZA because that's the right thing to do. But I think it's a building that's clearly larger scale than a typical row house, and can easily incorporate the 3 units that we're proposing. And so what we're seeking is a special exception to convert the building to a 3-unit building in the RF1 zone that typically only allows 2 units. And that is based on the lot area, which is 4,600 square feet. And that is, per the DC zoning regulations, typically sufficient to accommodate a 5-unit building with a special exception. Instead of pursuing a 5-unit building, my client has chosen to build a 3-unit building instead, focusing on larger family-sized units, quality units for the neighborhood. This is a great location, walking distance to Metro, and it's really a jewel of a property that can be very high quality housing, instead of slicing it into 5 tiny units. So that's the plan that we have. We are also seeking relief from the rear yard requirements that are typically applicable in the RF1 zone, because it's a corner lot with no existing rear yard currently. So what we are proposing is adding on basically to the existing garage and a small side wing. The rest of the building is existing and will be rehabilitated. So currently there is no rear yard, and we are proposing no rear yard, but because we are increasing the size of the building and the number of units, we are required to request a special exception from that requirement as well. In terms of the special exception test and how we meet the criteria, we have tried very hard to come up with a design that is thoughtful, that is not impacting neighboring properties in an adverse way, specifically in terms of light and air. There's one property in particular that we were concerned about, which is the property immediately to the east, which has some at-risk windows facing really along the property line and facing my client's property, and we are creating an open.
You mean to the north?
To the north, yes, perhaps.
No, it's actually, no, you're correct.
I think it's east, right?
No, it's west.
Orientation of the
West.
Oh, west. Okay, yeah. I was
Sorry,
gonna say it has to be
north-
north or west. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, north is to the right. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So we are maintaining an open area there, which we could have chosen to infill. We are choosing not to, as a gesture to the building next door. They do have windows facing that property line and along that property line. So to try to be respectful of that, maintain your access to light and air, we're creating an open area there, which we're calling a roof deck. And the intent is that will be for the private use of the owners of this unit 3 at the top. Some elevations depicting mostly the existing building, and then the parts that we are adding, which are this glazed veranda addition onto the garage and this secondary entrance. There's a front porch that currently exists, which we'll be rebuilding, and then we are adding a similar porch heading
Before you leave this one, because where are the neighbor windows in relation to what I'm looking at here?
They are beyond. There's a breezeway, and let me go to the next few images and I can better show you. So there's a breezeway here, let's say.
I see it.
Okay, so those are the 2 windows.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
But they look over the. That's what I'm trying to imagine, is if I'm inside there and I'm looking out that window, am I looking over the balcony, or am I looking straight in? Or will people be standing outside my window?
No, you're looking into an outdoor space. So
Okay.
there's no, it's an outdoor space. It's basically a courtyard. Although I don't want to call it a courtyard for zoning reasons, but it's
No,
an open air area.
And I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clear. The window, how can I say this? The windows are at the same level that people will be standing? Like someone could be standing and looking straight into the window. Is that possible?
They could, yeah.
Okay, that's all. I just want to make sure I was clear. Thank you.
Yeah, which is why I want to emphasize that it is a private roof deck.
Yeah.
It's a small outdoor space. We'll probably have some plants in it, and it's really just, just for the enjoyment of the Unit 3 occupants. And, we will do whatever is required to enhance privacy. But again, those windows are at-risk windows. They're not legal windows. So just not to, belabor that, but we are also proposing a bay window on the south side of the building facing Canyon Street Northwest. And this is really an attempt to tie the two sides of the building together. It's very hard to do interventions in older properties without making them look like a Frankenstein. So in order to have some continuity of language and materials from side to side, we are proposing a bay window on that side as well. Here are some images giving you the fuller picture. I should also mention there's a building restriction line on both sides of the property. That means we have to coordinate with DDOT because some of this work is technically public space, even though it looks like a private yard. There's an existing tree on the south end that is an invasive species and will likely be removed.
Do you know what the tree is?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but my client might. I know he has consulted with an arborist, and there's some information about it, and I don't recall what the name of the tree is. John, do you know? Maybe not.
I don't remember the name of that, but the arborist clearly said that's an invasive species, and nobody, we can do whatever with it.
Yeah, and actually, John wasn't proposing removing it other than, if it's an invasive species, it might be better to remove it than to keep it. So as far as we're concerned, we're trying to work around it. So it could go either way.
We'll discuss with the neighbors. If neighbor prefer to keep it, we might just trim it out enough to keep there's a sheet on the front side.
Yeah.
For both, if they agree, we can take it down either way.
So the other conditions imposed by the zoning regulations when converting a building into more than, exceeding the 2 units allowable are that we cannot build a rear addition larger than 10 feet beyond an adjacent building line. That clearly doesn't apply in this case. We are not adversely impacting adjoining buildings in any way. I can go to the pre-hearing statement and read it for you, but I'm sure you already have. So I'll just, pass the floor on to you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
And you are meeting your parking requirement with the space that is currently on the property?
Yeah.
So that's, go ahead. Can you bring it back to the, give me the elevation right there. Actually, that's fine. That's fine. So the only part that stands out to me is the front balconies, the bay window addition. And I thought I remembered seeing, is there a portion of the special exception to put those in there, or is that not affected by the special exception?
I don't think it's one of the conditions listed.
Except,
that has more to do with coordination with DDOT.
okay. I may need to go back. In my only thinking on that is normally there's a porch there today that you're turning into a bay window.
There's no porch on the south side. There's a porch along.
Oh, it's only on that side. Okay. I'm going to turn it over.
I can skip to the photos if that's helpful.
Yeah, that might be. It will, the bay window would then abut the porch. That's the neighbor's porch.
Correct, and it's in line with the porches all along Canyon Street. So it's intended to be sort of a continuation of that line of porches.
Gotcha.
And I don't have a good shot from that side, unfortunately.
No, I guess it does kind of stop. It looks almost like it wraps around, but it doesn't really.
Yeah, it should.
There you go. Yeah, that would help, actually. Okay.
We thought it should. But yeah, it is a bit of an abrupt end there.
And in terms of your talking to the neighbor, what have you done? What have they said? What's, where's that right now?
I don't know. I don't think my client has had a lot of contact with the neighbors yet. They have been notified, certainly by the Office of Zoning, but also our permit application has already been submitted and is well into the review process. So they were also notified through that. And my client will be reaching out to them for further dialogue, especially regarding the 2 at-risk windows, if that's an issue to them.
I would definitely want to hear from them, considering that, especially as you said, people will be outside those windows. I get that they're at risk, but they may even prefer to remove them. I don't know. So that's why I'm saying probably a good idea to talk to them about it.
Yeah, and we're flexible. I mean, we can certainly decrease the size of that open area to make it not occupiable. We can provide a privacy screen. I think it's a matter of finding out what their concerns might be, and maybe they don't have any. We just don't know yet. And as you know, our hearing was postponed. It was supposed to be in March, and now it's in April. So, I guess we got a little bit lazy with that aspect, but we will be reaching out to the neighbors.
Okay. Hold on just a second. I'm just making sure we don't have Commissioner, the commissioner for that zone is not on the call. So I will go to see, are there any other commissioners or county committee members that have questions? Jason, go ahead, or Commissioner Clark?
Yes. Oh yeah, thank you very much. I will say that I walk by here with the dog often, and I'm happy to see a sold sign. So thank you very much for rehabilitating this building. It's definitely needed it. And I do appreciate keeping some of the historic elements there, keeping it so the streetscape doesn't change that much. So thank you for the good design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
I agree. I live around the corner from this lot, and I think it looks great. The plans and the current state obviously is pretty horrible. Yeah.
Commissioner Bass.
Yeah, I guess I'm the odd man out. I really have a strong negative reaction to the bay window on Kenyon. I don't like it at all. And I didn't hear anything about asking for relief on the original rooftop architectural elements. And from the plans, it looks like you're removing the original porch roof, and that's something I just personally can't support. So I throw those out there. But I will say from the northern half, like what's going on top of the garage and the 3rd floor connector that's quite modern, I like all that. I just don't like what's going on in the front.
If I may ask a question, typically the way we read rooftop architectural elements, it's rooftop, right? Meaning above the roof, or above the, certainly the building walls. The porch does have a roof, but that is I understand what you're saying, but I also understand that the intent of the regulations is to protect things like, corner towers and dormers, which we are maintaining.
Yeah, I read the regulation. It specifically includes porch roofs. So okay. That's why I said what I said. It's not me being arbitrary. It's the language in the regulation. So if you haven't requested that variance and you really do plan to remove the original porch roof, you do need that variance. And I've had this fight with too many properties. I just can't support removing an original porch roof, even if everyone else outvotes me.
I don't think it's a crucial part of the design. It's simply what we thought was the right thing to do. It's also in poor condition, so it will have to be replaced no matter what.
I would encourage you probably to add that to your list of required relief, or at least discuss that with the Office of Zoning. I know I've spoken to other attorneys that have run into problems after the BZA because the zoning administrator has sent them back. So definitely check on, I did not catch that I guess, can you go back again now to the plans to show that porch? So, because we're keeping a porch, it's just you're changing the type of roof that you're using.
That's right. I mean, the roof itself needs to be replaced.
I mean, it's an obvious bad repair, but
yeah, we're actually changing it to a balcony. So that's the difference. And I think that's what Commissioner Bass was referring to. So we are proposing changing it to a balcony.
I gotcha.
And that sort of matches what's going on the other side. And again, that's just a design choice. I think it could work either way. We have not heard back from the Office of Planning yet about the relief requested. It's a fairly straightforward case compared to most, so I suspect that's probably why. But you know, that porch roof is not, I mean, we'll be glad to add that to the relief request. That's what we need to do.
The nice thing about the bay windows is they mirror the design of the building across Canyon a little bit. So I thought that was intentional, but maybe not.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually one of the nicest bay windows, you know, that's been added onto a building in a way that actually looks like it belongs. So yeah, we were trying to do something similar, but you know, slightly different detailing, but yeah, it is a successful one.
I'm pausing. I'm actually hesitant to do too much because I really do want to hear from the neighbor. So we may, you know, I would really like to have you speak to them and to know, because they may have some specific concerns that we're not aware of because, you know, we don't live in the building when it comes to the bay and how it interacts with their porch. Because it would put, is that you have living space that extends out into the bay. So there is sort of a privacy thought. I mean, I know it's a porch, so you're outdoors, but think about that. And then the, you know, I just don't know what to say about the two windows yet, because I would want to hear from them. So my thinking, at least at this point, is let's talk to the neighbor, you know, and get a report from them and see where they are. I mean, no matter what, we're going to have to bring this to the ANC next month on our, you know, March. Forgive me. Oh yeah, is Commissioner Lovewaite, did you join? I think I saw your telephone number.
You would have to unmute her, I believe.
No, she muted herself.
Am I, okay, I'm here.
Yeah, did you have any questions for this case?
I need to review these plans a little more.
Okay.
And we have time to discuss it, I think, before our meeting with the commission.
Correct, we do. I mean,
Yeah.
we're our next meeting is March 10th.
Is where the concern, where the porch, the balcony abuts the next building's side window?
So it's two pieces. The front bay windows, you know, come out to the same level as the porch of the next door neighbor, and which is what fronts Kenyon. And then in the middle of the building, there are two side windows that were built that should not have been built, and I want to make that very clear. They should not be there, but they were, and they will look into this new outdoor space. And I would want to hear from, I mean, the neighbor might, you know, the neighbor's going to say what the neighbor's going to say, but I want to make sure that they understand what's happening.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the building next door is a rental building, just so that everyone is aware.
Okay.
But that doesn't matter that it's a rental building. It's still people's residences, whether it's purchased or rental or lent. It's
Understood.
still a residence. And I want to be clear when we talk about, you know, who occupies. Don't diminish the occupant by the fact that they're a renter and not an owner. The impact will be the same on both parties.
That's not what I meant. I simply stated that because a lot of times it can be a lot harder to get a hold of renters. A lot of times renters are just not as committed to the process, but we will certainly try to reach out to them.
Okay.
Very good. Well, like I said, I before we come to any, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bass, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I just have one final question because I am aware of the building restriction lines. You mentioned that you might be encroaching upon those, which is a DDOT process, I believe. So what's the timeline for that notification and potential approval from DDOT. And if DDOT doesn't approve encroaching upon the building restriction lines, then what?
We've already submitted an application to public space. We have not started receiving comments from DDOT yet, but that process has already been started. Of course, what we're trying to accomplish is to make all of these things happen concurrently, right? As part of the BZA review case, as you know, DDOT usually provides a letter expressing any concerns they might have with the project as well. And we're hoping that all of these things fall into place. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So we've started all of these processes to get to the same end goal. We have not received any feedback yet.
Okay, well, we've got other cases. I don't want to belabor it. We'll follow up with a neighbor. I'll follow up with you guys and certainly include the SMD commissioner to see if he maybe knows somebody that lives or owns that building. And we'll definitely see you in March. But let's keep these lines of communication open between now and then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right. Panelists, let me just clear.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead while I'm trying to change things.
Yes, if you need a variance for to change the roof lines to accommodate a balcony.
Yeah.
Would that then impact on your timeline because it would be a modification?
Well, they would. Well, it could impact their timeline because if they didn't include it in the original package and they need to add it, then that could. I forget exactly. They're meeting. They're probably still within I think they have to do things within 45 days of the meeting, so they may still have time to slip it in.
Okay.
But that's why I'm saying let's keep those lines of communication open. If it does push, then we'll bring them back for another meeting and work those things out.
Right. That was what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
And we may have to meet on that again before so that might push it from our March meeting. That was what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. All right, Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Cross, I'm going to bring you up. And I believe this one is also Mr. Sullivan. And Mr. Sullivan, I know you told me earlier who the, I'm probably talking over him. Oh, I brought the wrong person.
Yeah,
Sorry,
this is Phil Cross. Hello, can folks hear me?
Hi, Mr. Cross. Yes, I hold on a second. I promoted the wrong. The people move around. Sean, thank you, Sean. I think that's.
I don't have my agenda up. Which one are we going to?
We're going to 1219 Kenyon Street.
Okay.
If I can click all the right buttons here. Sean, I assume you're the architect in this case and you're the sharer?
That's true.
Okay, very good. Thank you for raising your hand. I apologize to the rest of the audience. I forgot to mention that if you did have questions, you can raise your hand. I can make it so that you can ask questions. So forgive me for not doing that in the first case. But Sean, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and walk us through what you guys are doing.
Sure thing. Marty, while I'm sharing the screen, do you want to at least highlight the relief, or do you want me to go through the project and then you'll pick up what I missed?
Yeah, sure. I can mention that quickly. It's 10-foot rule relief. We're going more than 10 feet past the rear wall of the building to the right. The building to the left has already, actually the building to the left and the two buildings to the left did an addition back when you could manipulate your grade favorably to get an extra story, or to not include your lower level as a story. So our lower level is a story just by a couple inches. So we can't go up at all. So we're compensating for going back a little further, and we're only a little more than 10 feet past. There you can see the building. So these two buildings are 3 stories. We're stuck at this height because our lower level, because of the grade at the center of the front of the building, because of where that is, we're already 3 stories. So we're doing a rear addition. We're going a little more than 10 feet past 1221 Kenyon, and it's 26 feet past the building on the right, but we do have a 5-foot court at the 10-foot mark. And so then it's gone another 15 feet back from that point. So it's 10-foot rule relief is the only relief in this case.
Well, then that makes this kind of easier. So lot 117, have you spoken to that neighbor at all, and how has that gone?
So lot 117. Okay, so that's 1217 Kenyon. So the gentleman owns that house. I've owned the house since 2004, and so I've known this gentleman. His name is Mr. Adeboye, and I've known him for those 17 years. He doesn't live at the house. He lives in Northeast somewhere, and he's been using the house as a rental. I emailed him about a month ago. I said, this is what I'm doing. I shared all of Sean's plans with him. And I said, please get back to me if you have any concerns. And also, please get back to me if perhaps you don't have concerns and you think you'd be okay with this, because that would be useful input to have as well. And I'm yet to hear back from Dr. Adeboye. I can reach out to him again. I can email him again.
Okay. Other committee members, any questions? This is going to be a quick one, I think. I don't see anyone raising their hand.
I'll ask a quick one.
Okay.
I had to step out for a minute, so I didn't see. I understand the areas of relief. What's going on with the rooftop? Is it staying the same, or is it being raised? I know that the 2 beside it have already been raised, but
So the front elevation will actually be unchanged. Other than that, there are some exterior mounted AC units that we're going to remove, which will be an improvement. But the general height of the building is not changing. We are proposing a roof deck, but it's at the back of the building and it's hidden by the mansard at the front. So
yeah.
The screen right here is showing the proposed front elevation. And if I scroll up, here's the existing front elevation. So you can see they're identical.
Yeah, that's what I was how I was reading the drawings, but I just didn't know. So the tile roof and everything is staying in place.
That's our intention. And as Marty mentioned, our original plan was not to go back as far, but to add a 3rd floor. But by literally a magnitude of inches, our basement is a story. And so we got what we got for height.
Yep. Okay, I'm good.
And Michael, if I could interject, we are asking for court relief as well, because that 5-foot court is not wide enough. We don't have to provide the court, of course. So, and if it was a 2-unit building, there wouldn't be a minimum court width, but because it's 3 units, it will be, we'd be over. So we need special exception relief from that as well.
Gotcha. Did you guys do any shade studies for the extra 12 feet?
Let's see. Yeah, these take a minute to unblur for some reason, but yeah, they're pretty blurry. So
it's okay. Just explain the red and the gray and the dark gray.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm saying this right before I say it. All right, the dark gray is the matter of right shadow, and the red, so the light gray is the existing shadow, the dark gray is the matter of right shadow, and then the red is the shadow that we're proposing as a result of the relief that we're seeking. So you can see it shadows the rear yard over here a bit more than would have been otherwise. Obviously, the shadow to our own yard is nobody else's problem. In the afternoon, the shadow to our east is not really made worse because the neighbors' buildings are so much taller than ours that they're already shadowing for us.
Gotcha.
And so similarly, at the winter solstice, we're shadowing the alley. We're shadowing our own backyard. And once again, our neighbors are more offensive than we are from a shadow standpoint. The only time that our neighbor to the east can really complain is in the afternoon in the summer solstice, which is actually probably when you want the shade. So I don't know that we're hurting anybody too badly.
Gotcha. Any questions again from the community or from other commissioners? I do think this one is fairly straightforward. I would vote to support this. I would want you to continue to reach out to the neighbors that butt you in both cases, keeping in mind that that is how they can get party status. You know, abutting neighbors can get party status, so it's always a good thing to make sure they're in the loop and don't show up at the meeting at the last minute and make it harder. So I'll make a motion that we will move to support this application for the requested. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next case is 3556 13th Street. Mr. Sullivan, is that also one of your cases?
Yes, it is. With us should be Greg Curley and
Gregory,
Ritesh
that must be-
Mehta.
And Ritesh. Okay. Good evening.
Hello?
Gregory, will you be sharing your screen with the plans?
Yeah, I have the plans. I can
Fantastic.
do that.
Thank you.
And I'll talk about the relief briefly and mention that Greg's under the weather too, so don't pick on him.
Okay.
So this is a lot that's, we needed lot width relief, and you can get special exception for lot width relief if you provide an inclusionary zoning unit as one of the 4 units. So there's 3 market units and 1 IZ unit, and that is what allows us to ask for special exception. For the width, we are also asking for 10-foot rule relief for the building to the south. And you'll see that on the plans. And that's it. Those 2. Oh no, height too. Special exception for height to make them more compatible with the buildings on.
Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry, just for a second, because I see that Rob and Susan Geller raised their hand, and I just want to make sure that I didn't miss something in that last case.
Okay.
Rob or Susan, if you can hear me, I've unmuted you. Did you have something you needed to ask?
Yeah, I joined a little bit late. I got on for the 616 Quebec. Was that already discussed? I apologize.
That it's okay. That's later on. So we'll.
Okay.
Yep, I'll mute you for now. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's fine. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, guys.
So Greg, if you're ready, you can.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm ready. So bear with me. I've been under the weather the last couple of days, so but I'll take you through this. I guess I'm going to go to the end of the presentation, which will show the renderings, and then we'll show the plans.
Actually, could you show the building in its current state just so people have it in their heads?
Sure. This is the context right here.
Yeah.
This is the front views of the building, and then this is the rear of the building.
And the gap between the buildings is your property.
That's our property, and we're proposing, we have 32 feet, is that right, Marty? 32 feet total. And so we're proposing to subdivide into 2 16-foot lots. And that's why we're looking for the relief, 2 feet each, because it's 18 feet requirement. And then we're proposing coming back as well. And it's this structure to our south that will be going farther than 10 feet back. We're not actually going farther as back as far as the property on the north.
Okay, go ahead then from where you were. Thank you.
This gives a better description of our property, the site plan. You can see this building comes back very far. This is the one we're looking for relief from the 10 feet. 3552. Do you want me to go through the plans, or you'd rather look at the renderings first? Just quickly.
Yeah.
Plans. What we're proposing is to have a basement unit. Well, it'll actually be a cellar unit on the south building, which would be a 2-bedroom, which would be the IZ unit that Marty spoke about. And then above that will be a 3-story, pretty large unit, first, second, and third floor. And then the north building, we're proposing 2 over 2, cellar first floor, second floor, and third floor. So those are still 1,800 square feet. They're large family style units.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second. So Marty, I seem to recall a case in the past talking about not being able to put IZ units in a basement. Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yeah, that doesn't apply to this.
Okay.
To this scenario. That's for when you have 10 units.
Okay.
We're not required to do an IZ unit because we're less than 10 units. Yeah. So that it just wasn't applicable here.
Just so everyone, you are putting the IZ unit in there for special consideration though, right?
That's yes. True. Yeah, it is. We're required to do it to ask for the relief that we're asking for. So
right. So you're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart. I want to be clear on that. You're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And you know, I have a concern about the stigma of placing the IZs in the basement, which is the usual go-to for the cheapest unit. And I have my concerns on that, but this isn't the conversation for it.
Well, what we've done in the front here.
I want to point it out to you that it always gives me consternation.
Okay, what we've done here in the front, we've actually carved out the front because this is part of the property. So you come out at grade at the front. So it doesn't feel like you're underground because you have this large patio right here. You come down some steps and then that opens up. So you do have a large patio that connects the unit itself with grades.
Yeah, I'm familiar. They've done my block like that, terribly snag-a-toothed. Okay, thanks.
So when we were looking at the concept, what we were looking to do was to create a building that had 3 dimensions to it. So many townhomes and row homes, when you're in center block, are very flat. So we came up with a massing study that pushed and pulled the front of the building. And then we're using materials that are common with structures throughout the city, brick and wood here. But that was the main idea, is to get some depth and for this building to read in 3 dimensions instead of just a flat facade. And, you know, we're not sold on this color of brick, but we can surely talk about that. But that was the main idea, is to have a contemporary building that uses materials that are consistent with buildings throughout DC, and to create a design that gives 3 dimensions to a building type that typically looks very flat. So this is a rendering of what the front would look like. And then the rear, you can see our building doesn't come out as far as this other building. Our decks do slightly, but not the building itself. And then we are asking for relief from the height of the building, which is consistent with the buildings both to our north and to our south in terms of the heights of those buildings.
And what is that height?
I have the elevation. The top of roof assembly is 38.3, top of parapet is 40 feet 6.
Okay, thank you. If you could go back to the rendering now. Did you have any other points?
Just listen to comments and questions. I'll be glad to respond as best I can.
Sure, thank you. And again, I'm looking at the list. I don't believe that the SMD commissioner has joined us. So it's just the committee. You know, the only—
Commissioner Ray.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know, and I could wait till you ask, but Ritesh can talk about interactions with neighbors.
Oh yeah, please.
We have had
please
some.
do that. Please do that.
Hi, thanks for having me in here. So yeah, I have been in constant contact with the blue row house on the north. That's Ms. Karoon, and she has been supportive of the project overall. I think she does like the whole concept of this building being not in the best state, and we bringing in something and then having, you know, a nice place for families to stay. We have been talking about how this will impact her party wall and her house, and if there are any impacts, we will be taking care of that. So we will be kind of continuing those conversations, but those seem pretty like kind of solvable kind of discussion points based on my conversation with her and Greg's conversation with her. So I think in my point of view that we should be able to get a support letter from her before our next meeting.
That would be good. And what about the brick? I'm sorry, the brick building?
Yeah, this is a condo building. There are 2 owners to it. I will try to reach out to them again before our next meeting, but I have not been able to do that successfully.
Okay. So the comment that I would on the design, which and I'm glad you did a rendering, by the way, because I could not tell from the original plans exactly how this was going to come together. And I'm not an expert, and I'll turn to somebody that has a little more experience than I in a moment. But the roof, it doesn't seem like it has a roof. Is what I would say as a layman. Is that it just kind of goes up into the air and there's nothing up there. And I wonder, is there any way to, I don't know, tie it in with the roof lines of the other buildings by having something up at that rooftop?
Sure, we added these trellises to give some type of it. We could actually, you know, the brick mass is the same height as the wood mass. To play with different heights of those 2 things,
yeah,
might give some more definition of it. And then trying to make the canopies here, which give cover to these outdoor spaces. These are both the master bedrooms. We could play with that and see how that works with giving some more articulation to the roof line.
Okay, thank you. Looking to the committee, do you have, hold on, I see. That's that. Do any of the other committee members have any questions or thoughts?
More of a comment.
Please.
Actually, I don't have a problem with any of the zoning relief as it's been described. So I don't know where I am overall, because I will say that this is architecture because I'm responding to it strongly, but it's not a positive response. I just really don't like that. It reminds me of a lot of modern-ish type buildings from the 1980s, and I really didn't like the architecture during that period. But the zoning relief itself, I don't have a problem with.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, didn't we at one of our VDC meetings talk about the fact that we would actually gain a parking space because you'll be closing up that area, or will we be gaining a parking space?
Let me go to the site plan with the parking in it. We have 2 official spaces. You could probably fit 2 cars in there, but at 16 feet, you can only have 1 legal space.
You know,
Is
one
that what you're
thought,
talking
sorry,
about?
you know, one thought you guys could do, well, I guess it would take more time. Sorry, well, you know, if you change the lot lines at the back, I've seen that done where you could get the extra space to get 1 approved space, correct, Marty?
Yeah, we could, well, I mean, I don't know how one space would have to.
Oh, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess we could do that because we wouldn't be changing our lot width, but then I'd have to check on our minimum lot areas. I think we have plenty of lot area.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue. It's 1,800 square feet, right? I think we're.
Yeah, so we
about
could
that.
do that, or.
Yeah, the case is
I have this issue on another case where if you could just do 2 compacts instead
Right.
of 1 full and 1, you know, that, but we would need relief for that.
No, and I wouldn't suggest that, but you wouldn't even need relief of any kind, I don't believe. We have this on the 700 block of Columbia Road where they you know, jagged the rear lot area lines so that
Yeah, we can definitely do, I'm pretty sure we can do that.
and that would give you
You
a
would have
I
a-
just have to make sure it doesn't affect rear yard or anything like that.
You would have a more relief at the rear because then one of the properties would not be as wide at the rear of the property.
wouldn't be the 16.
It doesn't matter. We only measured at the 30-foot mark.
Okay.
So we can alter it. I'll check. I'll make sure.
And
But,
then
and I'll see if that's something we want to do. I'd love to get 4 compacts in there, and I wish the zoning regulations allowed for something like that with a narrow lot, because that comes up a lot with the 16.7 lots. But that's so anyway. Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll look into that.
Commissioner Lovewade?
Yeah, well, you know, parking makes me happy. Lack of parking makes me sad.
All right. Well,
I guess
we're aiming to make you happy.
The intent was that you could get 2 compacts in, and I thought Ritesh was an advocate on that on both of the lots. If you go 8 and 8, which is a compact space, then both of the properties would have the ability to have 2 compacts. But we can't show it that way because we need to show the 9 feet for the.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. We may be able to show, we would have a 9-foot parking space and a 7-foot limited common element that is permitted to be used for parking. It's just not big enough to be quote unquote legal for zoning. So we might end up with 4. Anyway,
And that's what
I don't know.
what Ritesh had communicated with me, was that he was hoping, and if we move the lot line, then we lose that option for one of the properties.
Well, you'll discuss it. I mean, we're just pointing out what we're noticing, and we have seen it done. So you know, and if it's one big flat piece of concrete back there, I am sure the neighbors will use it however they choose to use it.
Permeable concrete. So
yes, of course.
We can be environmentally sensitive as well.
Absolutely permeable.
Thank you. We appreciate that. All right, as Commissioner Bass mentioned, you know, on the areas of relief, we don't have any, you know, if this is not about aesthetics necessarily, but I would I would support the areas that you're asking for relief, provided that you continue to, work with those two neighbors, think about that front roof line, and then look at this parking question. But so I'll make a motion that we would support the relief. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against?
Yep.
Okay. And no abstentions, I guess. Okay. So, sorry, how many of those? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
See you in March. And let me look at my caseload again. The next one is 616 Quebec Place. And I will raise up to panelist, Mr. Geller. And Mr. Geller, you should be unmuted now. Are you still there? There you are. Okay. Mr. Geller, was there someone else here for this case as well?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so it's just you. All right. Then if you have the plans to share, do you have the plans to share? I'm sorry.
Michael, Mr. Geller's a neighbor. He's not the developer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. It's Michael. It's our Michael Cross. Sorry about that. I'm Mr. Geller. I'm gonna. Well, I'll leave you there.
Okay.
I'll leave you there.
Either way is fine.
Okay. Just wait till it's that time. Shoot, where did he go? I saw my arm. There he is. Promote the panelist. Good evening, Mr. Cross.
Good evening. I've got Amir Ibadi, who's the project designer on this as well.
Bringing him
Should
up.
be raising his
Yep.
hand. Thank you. And I guess my name's Michael Cross, architect. Amir will be presenting the presentation tonight.
Amir, you should be able to share your screen when you're ready.
Hi everyone.
Evening.
I'm Amir Abadi. I'm with Michael Cross, and we're presenting this 616 Quebec Street today. Okay, so on this project, we're seeking the. Should I share the screen?
Sure.
Okay, on this project, we are seeking the special exception relief to convert the existing two-story semi-detached row house to 3 units in the RF1 zone. This project is located on Quebec Street between the on the south side of the block between Warder Road and Park Place Northwest. On this project, we're not proposing any modification to the existing architectural element or the porch. We're keeping existing, and we will be providing 2 parking spaces at the rear yard, and basically, we're just projecting 2.5 feet past the neighbor, and we're not proposing any addition at the back. We're only proposing the top floor, 3rd floor addition, and we have contacted our neighbor regarding raising the chimney extension, and once we will file for permit, we will send a notification with all the structural and the snowdrift impacts to the neighbor as well. And we would be glad to answer any questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, this is in Commissioner Base's SMD, so I'll let him start us off.
I have never been opposed to anything as strongly as I'm opposed to this. This is the ugliest thing I have seen. It is incompatible with the architecture on the street, and it completely messes up the flow of the architecture of the entire row. These are composed rows, meaning they're symmetrical from one end to the other when you're looking at them. And there's just no attempt to be architecturally compatible. I mean, I understand the areas of relief you're asking for, but I am going to fight this with every fiber of my being. I just think this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
Did you have a question in there, Commissioner Base?
No, it's a statement. I mean, and I'm really disappointed in Mr. Cross and having this come out of his office. I know we've had many projects with him over the last several years, and I've come to expect like a lot more sensitivity and a lot more understanding of what's going on in this community. And I'm seeing nothing here. I mean, and let's be honest, I mean, you may have been talking to the neighbors that are abutting you directly as far as sharing the party wall. Have you talked to any of the neighbors you're impacting on Park Place? Like, this is not something that has no impact to neighbors that are in close proximity. I mean, I see many of them are here and some of them have raised their hands, and I think you need to answer to them, but I'm really against this.
I see, sorry, there's a helicopter over my building. I see Commissioner Clock. Do you want the neighbors to go first, Commissioner Clock, or do you have a question?
They can go ahead. I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Base that at first glance it looks really ugly, and maybe it's because of the dark addition. But I'll let the neighbors talk. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then since I already have Mr. Geller, since you are obviously a neighbor, do you want to start us off?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess you probably supposed I didn't join because I was in support of this either. I mean, most neighbors join because they're opposed. I would ditto everything Kent said. I mean, I didn't move to this neighborhood so we could build apartment buildings on this block. And that's basically what they call it. It's an apartment building. It looks, architecturally, it's horrendous. It looks like a building landed on top of this building is basically what it looks like. And it is not in keeping with the architecture of the neighborhood. If you look at you compare this to the one that was done on the corner of Warder and Quebec, that was also a 3-family, but they kept the architecture. They extended the white brick. It looks okay, and it fits in with the neighborhood, so it's clearly not as offensive. But even worse than that is, you know, I'm hearing rumblings from other neighbors that they want to build a 4-family house. There is not enough parking today on Quebec as it stands today. When the alternate side parking happens, I sometimes have to park 2 or 3 blocks away to get a parking spot. This will just exacerbate the situation. This neighborhood was never built to have 3-family houses on the block. And I'm sorry, this is just not in keeping. I don't know if 3-family is an exception or just the height matters or, you know, the width matters, but you can't put 3-family houses all on Quebec and expect people to have to be able to live there the way they would like to live. So I am vehemently opposed to this. I will, you know, I've talked to Kent before. I'd like to get the neighbors together to sign a petition. This is not a positive impact on Quebec Place in the neighborhood. And I think, you know, building a 2-family, I mean, a lot of the houses are 1-family, a number of them are 2-family, all the new ones that are going in are 2-family. I could live with that, but 3-family and the impact of 3-family in my mind is just not acceptable. Anyway, that's where I'm coming from. I support everything Ken said. I'm very opposed to this project.
Okay, Thank you for that. I'm gonna bring up the others here in just a second, but I'm gonna put you back into the attendee list. Thank you. And I'm sure I will certainly give time back to Mr. Cross but I think you should hear from everyone. I do want to answer that one of the reasons that this property is able to put in a 3-unit building is that it is on the corner and has a little bit of its own extra lot space that pumps it just over the number net necessary to do that. So it is somewhat of an aberration in that respect, but you know, that is why they're here. I'm going to go to Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask your question or statement.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I'm one of the neighbors that lives on Park Place that Kent mentioned that the developers haven't reached out to us. But I have a great deal of concern for light, number one. I'm immediately east of that addition and bump up, and I would be losing my light as the, you know, I'm right at the T of the alley. So that alley that runs in the straight westerly direction is also where I get the directional lighting from the west. And that would be compromised, if not, you know, completely gone. If I wanted to add solar panels in the back, as we've discussed in this household for a long time, I don't think I could. I think my light loss would hamper the ability to do the solar panels. And then privacy, I don't know where privacy fits in this conversation, or if it's something you consider, but there's about 30 feet from my back door and back windows to this bump up, right? 30 feet. And this would be sort of towering over and looking down on our row. My daughter, who I think is participating on this, I don't know if she'll raise her hand or not, but she lives in the room that looks directly out on this, and you should have heard her. She already feels compromised on the privacy front just with the buildings as they've been for, you know, 100 years. They were built that way, and we understand that. We moved here 20 years ago. We didn't move here for privacy. We understand there's a lot of community aspect to living in these row houses, but they were never intended to be mini apartment buildings with your neighbors sort of looking down and towering over you. I think it just changes the integrity of the neighborhood in such a dramatic way that I just can't see how this can go through. But thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak up.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. I'm going to take a few, and then I see it looks like Izzy Hughes. You should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, and just as my dad was talking about, I am directly viewing the property right now. And when I heard you speaking, I think you mentioned you were not going to bump out the back of the property. I guess that was my question.
Amir, can you answer that?
Sorry, sorry. We're not going to bump.
Yeah, are you going at, sorry, you broke up just a little bit.
Sorry, I was saying we're not going back any further than what it existing is.
You're only going up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you say that, are you taking into account the lot space on the back of the property?
Basically we are extruding on the existing footprint. We're not adding any footprint to the building.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you were going to build on top of the lot space that's currently behind the property.
No.
Okay. Well, that is good because I do worry about just the alley traffic because I do see a lot of trucks, garbage trucks pulling in and out. And I think that that would be a huge detriment to the traffic flow in the alley. I am extremely worried about light in the back of the alley. And if I look back, all of the buildings are exactly symmetrical and all of them are at the same height. And so this would be the first building on the row that's going to, you know, rise above that height of the row. And I'm just deeply concerned about the height and the light issue, as well as the current windows. So right now there's maybe like 1 or 2 windows that kind of might be able to see onto the back of the house, but with your current plan, you would be adding many more windows that would all be directly looking at my property, and not only my, you know, into the windows of my bedroom, but also the, you know, the garden, the alley, the, you know, all of our, you know, backyard space. And so those are my main concerns. And not to mention, you know, this is my office currently, and having to put up with construction will be extremely difficult with the working from home situation to come. So I'm not looking forward to that whatsoever. Thank you.
No problem. And I'm gonna just remove that. I do want to address that last point on the construction. The you know, the BZA is not the area to deal with construction concerns. They themselves will tell you that they have no authority or ability to deal with that because it's a temporary problem. But DCRA is the agency that oversees construction, and if you do have concerns during a construction period, that is the agency that we should reach out to. So, okay, Mr. Cross or Amir, do you guys want to try to address any of that or talk to this a little bit, or where do you want to go?
Yeah, I can speak to some of that. Obviously, I appreciate all the feedback. You know, I think that's this is exactly what this meeting is for, and these meetings are for with the ANC. Obviously, it's disappointing to hear that it's not well received, and we take that feedback, particularly the feedback with all those that we've worked with here many times before, very seriously. I would like to know a little bit more about some of the elements that are causing such a strong reaction. It was cited in some of the one of the other statements, I think by Mr. Geller, of the project at Quebec and Warder. I believe that actually might be a project that we did a couple years back. If it's the project that I think it is, this property is pretty different. That property was quite ornate and had a lot of architectural features in the existing property that we did work pretty hard to maintain, and worked with this board in multiple iterations to get that right. This end unit here has less of those architectural features. And so I would like to hear a little bit more about the features. I think in terms of privacy and light, we can provide a shadow study going forward. And, you know, privacy is something that we may simply not be able to resolve. It is, the existing house has many windows looking out in that direction. The proposed house actually reduces the number of windows in a good section of that house, but does add another story. So you'll have a slightly higher vantage point. I don't know if we will ever be able to reconcile that.
So, Mr. Cross, the one thing that jumps out to me in terms of what makes the building look a lot taller is that parapet, and I would wonder, you know, I'm not going to even attempt, not an architect, I'm not going to attempt to design your building, but maybe if the parapet, didn't have that solid, the color. I mean, this juxtaposition of what seems like a very light colored building and a very dark colored top is certainly, I'm sure, a concern. And then that parapet creates a lot more height than is really there. So that might be an opportunity as well. So I would point that out. On the privacy, can we see the back of the house currently? Or maybe what you're proposing for the rear? Do we have that side?
Are you asking for, so the existing rear was in the slide you just saw,
Yeah.
and the proposed rear is.
No, I like the one that actually kind of showed the, oh, that's even better. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there was an opportunity for any kind of screening. But you don't have balconies back there. So, because in the past we have gotten a different type of material across the back to help kind of screen those higher windows. They're not too big, which is, I think, helpful. But anyway, those were things that just jumped out at me as ways to help mitigate. But I'm not sure, does anyone else on the committee have points?
Yeah, I kind of did too. Are you maintaining the facade of the front?
We are, yes, we're maintaining.
Then it may not be as contrasting from old to ultra modern if you would carry the facade, the bricking or whatever to the add-on. Of course, using shadings to delineate the two structures, but some kind of way that you could carry the, you know what I'm saying, that look from the front, so that, especially since it wraps around the corner, so that it doesn't look so glaringly old and new.
So you are in support of modifying the architectural rooftop element in order to blur the two together?
And the stone front, whatever that whatever the facade is on the front of the building, you can incorporate that into the add-on.
Yeah. So
it's just a recommendation because I know it's very ugly the way it looks. It's like a building behind a building, you know.
Yes.
Like a lipstick on a pig kind of thing.
So yeah, we are often stuck in this position. We too are advocates of modifying that architectural rooftop element. Unfortunately, Office of Planning is not. And we have found that we need to be very careful about those projects we choose to manipulate that architectural rooftop element, because we very often run into Office of Planning opposition for that move. Here, it seemed like we didn't need to do it, and we could step back. I have argued your point exactly, that the zoning regulations unfortunately create this archetype that is not an archetype. You know, it's this new DC thing that's really just because of some sort of imprecise zoning regulations that came out of the Stop the Pop-Up movement several years ago that I think are having unintended consequences. I don't know if we would be willing to add that additional relief to this project for fear that we may face further opposition down the road. But I do think that we are willing to work on some of the materials, the language, the overall height, to try to make them less of a contrast.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark, I think you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. So I guess I would say, even though you're talking about pop-ups not happening anymore, they do. And you're trying to maximize the space to make it look a square box on top of a house. So I don't know if that's necessarily what's needed here. I do think that the dark color is a problem, and I would wish you would work to incorporate the current elements of the existing building into the addition. So whether, I don't know if you need another, I'm not good at design like that, but if you could use, let's say, similar colors, similar rooftop elements up higher. I know sometimes we get a 2 to 3 story and they move the roof up, like the roof elements up. So it looks similar, if you could do that, but I'm just putting a box on top feels like it's just another pop-up to me. And it just, I know it's maximizing the space, but it's not visually pleasing at all. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bass.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say I'm not focused on the color. I mean, I think that the dark and the white, you know, it is what it is, but let's face it, paint is paint, and whatever colors were in the drawing today, there's no guarantee those colors are going to be on the building in 50 years. And so in that regards, I am worried about long-term, right? Like, even if there was some optical illusion that could be created to make this addition fade away through use of color, that's not going to be the way it is in 50 years, right? It's like, because, you know, people don't maintain things to the standard of which they are when the project's done. I will also say too, that just because the property appears to have enough land for 3 units, it really doesn't strike me as being 3 units that we would really want in the community. Like, if I'm reading the plans correctly, the addition creates a 2-floor unit at the top, and then you've created 2 1-floor units. You know, those aren't family sized, and it's a family neighborhood. You know, I just don't understand. Like, these houses function very well with making the English basements because all of them have walkout fronts. And I just don't know why you can't do that. And I am actually curious, Mr. Cross, if you're the owner or what's behind this, because I know you're the architect or it's your firm. And then I have 2 questions that I'm more interested in, and that's what's the current lot coverage of the existing structure, and are there any required setbacks on the side? Understanding the building is where it is, but do any of them encroach upon a setback if there is one?
Yeah, so I'm not the owner. We're the architects. I'm not sure if the owner is on the line, but if he is, he can certainly raise his hand. I think your second question was about setbacks. We are simply extending the existing, and to our knowledge, there are no setback issues here. Obviously the rear and front are not an issue. The side is a little bit ambiguous as it approaches the line in an odd angle, but to our knowledge that it is conforming.
Yes, lot coverage. Lot coverage as well.
Lot coverage, yeah. It's within its lot occupancy allowable. It's actually at 44% existing and proposed, which is less than the 60% allowed.
I'd actually like to know more if there is any kind of side setback. I recognize that the existing structure is what it is, and sometimes with these older buildings, parts of them are non-conforming, and I'm accepting of allowing the non-conformity to continue, but I'm not really supportive of increasing that non-conformity. So I'd like to know what that setback is, if there is one.
Sure. Obviously, we would as well. We will try to get you an answer as soon as we can get an answer. I would say that we're not seeking that relief. So, and it's a self-certified application. So we would have to come back before you if we have it wrong.
Obviously, I think there are going to be some changes between now and the next time we meet. So I'm hesitant to say that we would make any kind of vote tonight, but this is not my SMD, Commissioner.
I would vote to oppose.
Is that a motion?
I will move to vote to oppose. I will move to oppose this unless there's more time to have another meeting with any kind of updates between now and the BZA case.
that's what I was wondering if Amir could help us. Do we have a BZA date, Amir?
Yes. Just a second. I will pull it up right now.
I want to say you're on April 4th, but I could be wrong.
I thought it was March 31st.
Oh,
yes.
Is that what you have, Amir, March 31st?
Yes, that is correct. We're on March 31st. Yes.
So it seems like that's not going to give us time to meet again. Is that correct? Mr.
well, we
Wright?
could. I mean, we could. I mean, if Commissioner Bass is amenable, and again, we haven't seconded yet, so we can still talk. We could certainly set up a special meeting where we just talk about this case, if the commissioner feels like that's going to be helpful.
You can set up a special meeting, but I would like to vote to oppose it tonight. And then if we have time for another meeting, we can amend that vote as we see some changes. But right now, this is what we have. The timeline doesn't look like there's going to be another meeting. So based on what I'm seeing tonight, I would like to oppose it. But if we see something better, then sure, we can have a special meeting. And we would want to make sure that we have appropriate outreach to all of the neighbors that are on this call tonight and the neighbors who are not so happy about this, who aren't on the call tonight. I'm really hesitant to take a position tonight and then have a meeting that's poorly attended with neighbors thinking we're going to zig when we ultimately zag.
No, I understand. And again, there was a motion, so I will ask for, is there a second on the motion?
Point of clarification, please.
Sure.
Or should I second it and then clarification?
Well, we don't have to be that formal. Go ahead with your clarification.
Okay, so our vote to oppose would then perhaps have zoning send it back to us for a review again, if, with modifications in case they agree with our opposition.
So my answer to that would be, this is a committee, so this is just our recommendation to the full. We would still have to meet in March, and if the meeting date of their BZA case doesn't move, then the full ANC would have to see whether or not they agree with us. And if they opposed, certainly we could go down and say, hey, it didn't work out the first time, and we could ask. Then yes, the BZA might send it back to us. I hope that answered the question. Our votes tonight are simply recommendations to the full ANC. They are not our ultimate decision.
Certainly, then I second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dottie, I'm not sure if I heard you.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you, Stan. All right. So that's the recommendation, but that doesn't mean that the conversation stops, Mr. Cross. Do what you can, have talking internally, see what you can come up with. I'm certainly happy to help orchestrate any future meeting, and we will, we'll take this to the full ANC and see where it goes.
Much
Any questions?
appreciated.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thanks,
all
guys.
the feedback, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can. I'm bringing up Adam, and I'm bringing up Matt. And Adam and Matt, I don't know if there's, well, wait till you're all in here. Sorry.
Oh, I see Marty's here too. I thought you were I was wondering if Marty had.
Yeah, I guess
dropped.
Marty's been quietly hanging out in the background, which is helpful.
I believe quietly hanging is another, isn't that the definition of lurking?
Lurking, I think is what he meant.
Lurking?
I'm just clearing, I'm clearing the bookings here to make sure. So just so everyone's aware, we're talking now about 428 Manor Place. We have met on this in the past. We have voted to not to support this case in the past. It is a sister case to 426 Manor Place, which we opposed and did go to the BZA, and the BZA did not agree with our line of thinking and approved the case 426 Manor Place with their requested relief. This case is identical. So, you know, we've had some, I know there's been some discussions amongst everyone. So I really would want to just focus in on, you know, what's different, you know, have we changed the design, or, you know, are we changing the package? How are we moving forward? So with that.
Thanks. I'll go first, and then as Adam pulls up the plans. The big change from this, obviously, we've heard everything, and we've heard a lot about these two cases. The big thing with 428 is that Matt made big adjustments to the rear addition in deference to the adjacent neighbor, and I think they were significant and pretty extraordinary as far as being responsive. Now, we know how everyone feels about the parking issue, but as far as the rear addition, I think that deserves, I would hope it would deserve some consideration, because I think it was a really strong response to that adjacent neighbor. And I think that's important as well. So that's all I have. I'll turn it over to Adam.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Adam Crane, architect. Thank you all for being here and taking up your evening. I'm pretty impressed about the pace you guys have been getting through them tonight. So I'll try and be quick to keep that pace. 428 Manor Place Northwest. As previously mentioned, we had looked at 426 Manor. This is the one directly adjacent. And it's a 3-unit special exception. We're going to BZA for that 3rd unit. I guess these were kind of designed in tandem with the footprints. You know, we kind of have these dog legs or these courts. The effort there was to minimize the impact while providing rear addition. We're pulling it off the side property lines in both of these. To be a little more respectful of those properties there. You know, we're aligning the rear of the facade with this addition that currently exists for 430 Manor. I would like to pull up the previous plans that were presented. And, you know, we got a lot of feedback. I believe the owner, Matt Scorzafaza, who's on here, had significant discussions with the neighbors. You know, most of I guess the revisions would be apparent. This kind of whole mass here at the 2nd and 3rd floor has been removed. And comparing that to here, you can see that it's been pulled back on both 428 and 426. The driving force behind that was, I guess, discussions with the 430 Manor neighbor. To kind of align with their lower, shorter addition that exists, and not to create kind of a towering presence, blocking light and privacy and decreasing privacy, kind of coming over the project to their property. Taking a look at the site plan. This actually doesn't have a porch on the front. So 428 will be putting in a new porch. I guess it was taken off at some point in the past. 426 has one, 430 has one. So we're kind of, I guess, resurrecting what was missing there with regarding the street frontage there. You know, as discussed, we have that side court there. This is going to be kind of a large walkout terrace at the rear of the 2nd floor. Going to the plans, I think it's helpful to look at what we previously had. So this is the old plans. This obviously with the color coding, pretty clear to see the 3rd unit. Unit 2 here, we previously had a 3rd bedroom here at the rear of the 2nd floor. And with Unit 3, we had a 3-bedroom setup that occupied the majority of the 3rd floor. Going back to what's now, as a result of neighbor conversation and scaling back, you know, we're now down to 2 bedrooms here. and 2 bedrooms here, because that third bedroom's been removed from that second floor. So again, all of this has been cut off in response to those neighbor discussions. I think it's worth pointing out one of the, I guess, the biggest issue that we ran into last time is this block does not have an alley, no alley entrances. So, you know, I realized parking was a major concern. And I believe Matt can jump in, maybe discuss how he's had conversations with some of the neighbors regarding that.
Thanks, Adam, for going over the changes to the plan since the last time we were here at this level. I mean, I think some people on the call have probably seen some of those plan changes already. Yeah, at the last time we went over this project at both this call and the ANC level, we hadn't secured a parking space across the street with Mrs. Robinson. We did secure that agreement with her to provide a parking space. You know, as Adam said about the front porch, we'd like to restore the front porch to 428, trying to figure out a way to match what was existing. And would be interested in hearing any additional feedback that you may have.
I had a question regarding a lot of concern about trash receptacles in front of the property on trash pickup days. Was there any consideration to how you could mitigate that problem?
Yes, that actually came up at a lot of the discussions early on. And I think almost immediately, we actually, even before I think we had any discussions, we created this trash area underneath the front porch. We also had an idea to see if we could contract with private trash that provides trash service for the 4-unit properties across the street. But those, I think it was discussed pretty early on that would just add an additional trash day to the front of Manor Place, the south side of Manor Place. So we scrapped that idea.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Base's SMD, so I'll leave it to you next.
Sure, and I don't know where my free-flowing mind is going to go tonight. Clearly, I feel a little bipolar. As in, I'm in the extremes of whether I like these or don't like these tonight. I'm going to definitely agree with Matt on the decision for the private trash. I know we have some blocks and not too far from here where over time you get multiple properties that decide to go the private trash route and they don't all use the same vendor. So it's not just twice a week city pickup. Then you get 3 other trash companies like on the street with their particular, it's just like, you know, that becomes too much of invasion in the neighborhood just to pick up trash. I mean, you're at 3 units and that means that you are allowed to be serviced by the city and they pick up the trash at the curb with all the other properties. It just makes sense that you do that to me. I will also say that I am very appreciative of you restoring that porch. I think that is a nice feature. People do like to use their porches and all the houses on that block, that side did have those porches at one side. So I know we've discussed this and I'm appreciative that you're doing that. One thing that I mentioned that I don't know if you can do, and I don't know if it's easy to do based on where the utilities are underground, but I don't know if it's possible for you to get a tree in there or not. Not a requirement, but I would seriously ask that you consider it. You know, you can get a KC Trees tree for $35. It's not a bank breaker. And I only say that because the block has no street trees. There is no place to put them. So I think that is something that brings a lot to the block over time, and not just for your property, but to all of the neighbors. And so I think that would be something that's appreciative or appreciated. You know, the big issue here, as with the last one, was the parking relief. you know, I know a lot of people on this block were very disappointed in the outcome of the last case. I know many of them have not changed their hearts of minds. I also know that it's just, you know, based on the last case, I think it's very clear that the BZA is going to look at the block that's landlocked and say, you can't get street parking, so okay, you get relief. So with that said, you know, I'm still very much in support of my neighbors, but I also think that there is some insanity in continuing to spit in the wind and expect that you're not going to have a wet face. So I'm just saying that, you know, whatever we can do to make this the best project possible, that's kind of where my head is right now. I'm not a big fan of pushing the outdoor thinking that I'm going to get inside. I would rather find some constructive and productive way where everybody wins as much as possible. And that's just where my head is right now.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the committee? I guess mine would be, you know, you were able to find a parking, well, you didn't find a parking space. You added an additional parking space to a neighbor's property, and that neighbor will now park in that space, in theory, removing at least one car from the street. Did you have any other suggestions or thoughts on a mitigation strategy for this parking space?
Specifically, I did not have a specific parking space, and honestly, we originally offered that parking space to 2 members of the community. I think we've gone over that before, but I made the determination that no matter what happened, I was gonna provide the parking space to Mrs. Robinson, given some of the information she shared with me and some of the I just think she really could use the parking space. So I didn't want to go around to the whole, to tell you the truth, I really don't know how much that made a difference on the last round. So I didn't want to go around to the whole neighborhood and offer free parking and then be the guy that, you know, oh, sorry, I can't give it to you. So I didn't do anything there. I was thinking that maybe we could make a donation to something in the community. District Bridges, I think, is an organization that works in the community. I would be open to something like that. I was thinking either $7,500 or somewhere in that range. I don't know if that helps with the parking at all, but maybe it would help with the with other aspects in the community.
Thank you. I did look up what parking spaces are going for in Columbia Heights, and I found 2, and I won't share them here, but I'll just say that I found 2, one for $190, and I think the other one was $174 per month. So that would mean that $7,500 is roughly three years worth of parking. I guess that's a way to look at it.
I mean, another alternative, we've done this in the past, and now I'm kind of just spitballing ideas. We've given prepaid Metro memberships to people, prepaid bike share memberships. I mean, at the end, if we provided a year or 2 of that, it would probably be across 6 units. It would probably only add up to $1,500. But
that may also be a thing. So I'll turn to the committee. I'm going to turn to Commissioner Lovewade because I know she has a particular penchant for the parking issue. You know, how does any of that sound to you?
Well, I don't think that the neighbor got fair market value for that parking relief, but that's something that's water under the dam. I think that regardless of what position our ANC takes on this issue, BZA has already ruled and will probably rule the same way on this one. I don't see where anything has changed. I would just like to implore you as a developer, the next time you are purchasing property for flipping purposes, that you consider the residents, the impact that your development is going to have on the quality of life and the parking in that neighborhood. All of this is important. it's so important that our commission led the fight in having the zoning regs changed to fight against the pop-ups and the pushbacks. So I just want to be clear that while this may be a victory on this instance, we are going to stay vigilant in protecting our residents, the homeowners, and the renters who have to live here after you've taken your project and gone away. We absolutely feel the impact of each and every multi-unit development that happens on our block. So I just want to make that statement clear that I'm still in support of getting as much parking for our neighbors as possible. And to the degree that I can lend my voice to their support, I'm here. So I do not support this project, but I think it's rather moot.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hold on, I think I see a hand. Commissioner Bass.
Yep, just me again. I'm kind of in the zone with Commissioner Love-Wade, especially with the issues pretty much moot based on the outcome of the last BZA case. But that, with that in mind, I also think that anything that, like some of the options that have been discussed so far, like the other thing I want to keep in mind too, and if we can get any support for this, I know there are two different issues with two different agencies, but they all have to do with parking. And that's the DDOT North-South Bike Lane project. You know, there are a couple of options that DDOT has thrown out to the community. One is an option that would increase parking on Park Place. And then, of course, they've done another version where they would not increase parking on Park Place because they would create a walking path. I think that right now it's pretty clear that while the walking path might be nice, right now we need the additional parking option because it would provide some parking spaces near these properties as well. So again, if there's any support we can get for that, not just from those on the call, but I think that has to be a priority for us in order to give the residents on Manor Place the relief that they're asking about for the concerns that they have. And I think that is a strong alignment. The other thing I would say to Matt, and I know we've had this conversation and I don't, you know, I already know where you are on this, which is agreement. You know, I don't think it's enjoyable for either the commissioners or a property owner to be at odds with each other. I think we do try to find solutions when solutions are possible. So I would just again encourage, let's have these conversations much sooner, even if it's about a prospective property rather than a purchased property. I know I've given my time in the past that I would continue to do so, and I'm sure other commissioners would too. And I think anything that helps us get to a strong working relationship rather than an adversarial relationship is preferred. And I think I'm preaching to the choir on that one, but I just needed to get it off my chest.
Okay.
Commissioner Clark?
And I know I don't have the data for this, but I do take bike share every day. But I think that if I had a vehicle and had a free bike share membership that you provided, I would leave my car on the street and take up the space anyway. So I would rather, if we can, find a parking, off-street parking spot available for any development. So I know if it's not possible, then that's okay. But I don't think necessarily offering Metro or bike share is going to offset the vehicles for the property.
Point taken. So, Commissioner, how do you want to proceed in this particular one?
Me personally?
Well, it's your SMD, so I'm deferring to your.
Yeah, I mean, right now, tonight, I think opposing it is kind of would be an exercise in futility. And I don't feel that's the right way to go. But I also feel that prior to supporting it, I would like to have some conversations with the neighbors on Manor just to answer some questions. So, I mean, if you want to vote tonight in support or whatever, that's fine. I will probably abstain until I'm able to talk to my neighbors, just because I want to have that conversation.
Well, and I would agree with you on that point. I would agree with you. There were a lot of neighbors that participated in this case, I'm sure, and I understand their disappointment. I don't, if there is an opportunity, you've heard tonight on what I would say is now on the record because this is recorded, that there is an offer, to try and do something for the community. And if maybe in those conversations people had other thoughts or ideas about how, if that kind of a donation, sways them or has an impact, we could hear that. So I'm happy to keep this just open, and that we would, give it, another 2-3 weeks, and see where we are. We still have to vote at the full. And I'm thankful that Matt has worked with us as much as he has. He's in a tough spot. I'll just reiterate what everyone else has been saying is that we'd love it if every developer came to us in advance of purchasing a property, but that isn't always going to happen. So I would.
Well then,
go ahead.
I would move then reluctantly to support the application.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Hey.
All right, we are in support, but again, I will remind everyone that this is a recommendation to the full ANC. I have no control over how they all vote. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yep, keep talking to us. All right, the final agenda item is the addition, which is an update from Commissioner Bass on on what he's been doing in regard to the historic district. I'll leave it to you.
Well, sure, and I won't take up much time. So the update to the committee is that the issue came up at the full ANC meeting in February, and by a vote of 5 to 6 to 0, it did not pass. If I'm understanding some of the concerns of commissioners who voted against it, some of them wanted additional outreach. So over the holiday weekend, I drafted a letter that will go out to, well, I say will go out. They were put in the mailbox, so they went out this morning. But every property owner within the proposed boundaries will be receiving notice by mail about what the vote was in February, and that I would like this committee to vote to support the nomination and have it been put back on the March agenda for reconsideration. One thing that did jump out at me when I pulled all of the addresses from the real estate taxes is I'd have to crunch the numbers, but there were a lot more properties owned by out of neighborhood residents and out of state residents than I had anticipated. I mean, nice in a way that the majority of those properties are rental properties, and therefore being older buildings are much more affordably offered than others that are owner occupied. But still, I was surprised at the number. So I'll have to get that data. But to be clear, all property owners will now receive official notice by mail, probably within five days or so, depending upon how broken the post office is.
It could be pretty broken.
Oh, it's really broken.
Yeah.
I just received, no, I'll tell you how broken the post office is. I received in the mail yesterday a Christmas card that I had mailed to a friend who has since moved, and it just got sent back to me as return to sender. That's how broken the post office is. They lived in DC, right? In ANC 1B.
And Commissioner, what kind of, are you asking people to write back to you, email you to give feedback, or how?
No, this is just public notice.
Oh, okay.
They've already been noticed twice. You know, this is just notice like any other notice would be. They've been made aware of when the next ANC meeting is and how to join that meeting. And they've been given contact information for myself and Commissioner Ray if they want to do outreach. So like if they want to write us, they can. They have all the information to do it, but self-addressed stamped envelopes were not included. I did that 5 years ago and very few of them ever came back to me.
So just to reiterate, then the idea that we're voting on tonight is to support the idea of putting it back
on the agenda.
Okay. Well, there's only the, go ahead, Dottie.
Since this has to do with zoning as well, correct? This is the appropriate committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this is zoning, planning, and yes.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that this is the appropriate committee for which we are now going to request that it be brought back to the commission for approval, and also to provide an update on what steps have been taken to address the concerns of some of our commissioners.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get in my mind so I can formulate a motion if necessary.
Gotcha. Sorry, so do any of the other commissioners have questions about that?
Nope.
I'm giving plenty of time. I'm giving plenty of time because I know I'm looking at the 4 squares and I know where 3 of these squares landed and where 1 square landed, and I want to give ample time that they if there is a question at this stage that question could be asked.
Well, do we know that this will change other commissioners' feelings about this? I mean, I was hopeful to have more responses. That's why I asked the question about people getting back to you, yay or nay. I'd love to hear from more of the community, but
and I was hopeful that a dead uncle would give me thousands of dollars. It's not going to happen. And I will say this to that. When the Hebrew home was being redeveloped, people were lined up out the door because they knew about it and they wanted to say something. When Park Morton was important, we had people cramming the Zoom meeting to tell us how they felt. Most people in this area are just, and some of it is, I mean, not to try to paint with a broad brush, but as I indicated when I was sending out compiling the mailing list, I was surprised at how many properties are rentals.
So let me just throw this out, if I may. Let me just throw this out, if I may. As far as public outreach and public response goes, as you know, I've been representing this neighborhood for 40 years or so, in and out of different capacities. I have personally hand-delivered notices to all of my residents about our ANC meeting, and I did it consistently every month, physically walking my ANC and handing out those notices. And if we ever got 3 of my constituents at that meeting at any given time, unless it was a particular hot button issue, it never happened. So in a perfect world, of course, we would get a groundswell of concerns like we did for Manor Place, because this was directly impacting them and their quality of life. But on issues that people don't see as impacting them and their quality of life, with all the other major issues and pressures, this will seem minor to them and may not even warrant more than a crumple up and put it in the trash because it don't impact me. So to expect the kind of response that a hot button issue like your direct neighborhood, I don't think we're going to ever get. I know I've not been successful in getting it.
only shootings bring people to meetings. So yeah, I understand that.
I will encourage, we should probably really reach out to the 16 or so who I know sent letters, and maybe encourage them to attend the meeting and give their reasons for why they think it is important to, and I will make this point, why they think it is important that we submit an application. We are not making an historic district. We do not do that. Other people do that. This is simply to submit an application to consider an historic district. So.
Kind of like getting on the ballot when you ask people to sign your petition so that you can at least get on the ballot to be considered.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Yes. I move that we submit an application, recommend to the commission at our next meeting that we approve the application for historic designation for the Parkview neighborhood.
Hold on a second. Yep. Do we have a second? I'm sorry. Yeah. Do we have a second?
Yes. I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. For the discussion, I just to see a. It's hard to keep up with it. There was a comment from Nadir, who is considering joining our committee. So I'm going to speak to Nadir tomorrow about that. So yes, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I guess if I may quickly. So, I mean, I would love to have more people speak. Thank you for offering that, people to come who supported it, because I know we can't reach everyone. I'm just happy that those who are willing to respond and can work with the community, be supportive of the ANC to be there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I will say I can reach out to the people I've heard from and let them know that they need to be at that meeting.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And that was all of them. So there's no reason to go. So that's 4-0. We've lost a committee member tonight. So with that, is there anything else?
Is there anyone left on the line? I'd like to announce our town hall meeting on February 25th with Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
And you can find that on our
7
website.
p.m.
Yep.
Yes, you can find it on our website.
You can also submit questions in advance through the website so that we can, make sure she gets those as well.
Correct.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm impressed. That was a lot to get through, and I'm glad we at least did it in 2 hours. Good night.
Good.
Everyone.
Michael, if you have time afterwards, could you give me a call? I have a begging question.
I will call you right now. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Good night.